Okay, we are live. It is now 8 o'clock, so let's go ahead and get started. So, hey everyone, it's Chuck Gross here, and happy Wednesday. I hope the second week of the new year is treating you well. I have a few things that I want to cover this evening, so let's get to it. The first thing that I want to talk about are some simple additions to your grocery list and to your diet in general that I think will allow you to easily get some more vegetables and some more fiber and feel fuller. While also adding some crunch. I know crunch in my food is kind of a big thing for me. I like that texture. Um, so basic salads that are plain iceberg lettuce are pretty boring by themselves. Uh, but not only that, they don't really contain much fiber. They don't really contain many vitamins and minerals. Iceberg lettuce is mostly just water. Uh, I'm not saying don't eat iceberg lettuce, but there are some things you can kind of add to your iceberg lettuce salad to give it a little bit of extra kick as far as some extra fiber, some extra nutrients, um, and a really good crunch. So for me, those two additions are broccoli slaw and shredded cabbage. Broccoli slaw is like the stalks of the broccoli that are finely shredded into long shreds, kind of mixes like that. And then shredded cabbage is your basic head of shredded cabbage that's kind of finely shred, almost like you'd see in a finely shredded coleslaw, but without any dressing. So you can just find bags of these that I find get them at Walmart, and I highly recommend them. You could probably eat them without them being on a salad. I have just mixed them with, like, say, some barbecue chicken before, and it kind of makes like I don't know what you'd call that, but it's really tasty. But I do put them on salads every day, and it's just a little bit extra that kind of helps there. Because they are finely shredded, they don't tend to have the characteristic taste of broccoli or cabbage. Those two vegetables can be a little bit bitter tasting if you're not used to eating them regularly, especially if you're eating them raw. But eating these raw, they don't really have that bitter taste. It almost just has like a crunch taste without a ton of flavor. But I find that just adding that crunch really does help. I like foods based on their texture. So for me, that's the big one. So next time you're shopping, look in your produce section. They're kind of usually with the bag salads. Uh, Start with the broccoli slaw. I think it's a great addition. So give it a try. And if you do give it a try, I'd love to hear about it. So please let me know. Okay. Before I get onto the questions, I do want to mention that I do have the Q&A portion of the app turned on, so it's going to be on the right-hand side. You could ask me a question, and then if I see it, I'll answer it. There is a delay between when you ask the question and when I see it, so please don't wait till the end if you have a question. So, alrighty, so on to the questions. The first question comes from Brandon, and Brandon asks, on lifting videos, people talk about eating carbs at the right time, and it's talking about what that means. So that's a good question to look at carbohydrate timing to ensure that they're getting maximum muscle gains on a weightlifting session. So specifically answer your question, spiking is in your blood sugar with a fast-acting carb, basically like candy. People will actually buy shakes that are essentially a protein shake with dextrose, which is just a form of sugar that just rapidly raises your blood sugar. And the idea after a session, it's ensuring that the protein you drink that is going to go right into muscle immediately and not wasting any of your gains you just did in the gym. Much of the information kind of perpetuate around gym culture comes from the bodybuilding culture is based around using steroids. So the rules are very different for someone that's natural and just lifting weight, or someone that's using steroids to gain advantage for competition. Part of that is this type is generally the source of many of our nutrition myths. So like the number of meals you have to eat in a day and like how much protein you can absorb at one time. This amount of protein. One of the things that changes when you're using drugs to your physique or your strength is metabolize protein differently. So you'll see these people talking about these insane protein amounts, like 200 grams, 300 grams of protein, and this is for someone that's under 6 foot tall. That's in general, there's never really a need to do that. If you're a natural lifter and your goals are health oriented, as opposed to like you want to be the biggest person on the planet and be Mr. Olympia. So just different scenario that's being applied to everyone. Just because you pick up a weight, since we're since basically if you're watching this, so our goals are going to center around less and general health, and in that context, these things are basically meaningless to us. It's not something. With that said, time your carbohydrates and benefit. Every person is going to differently, and that's going to change based on when you eat them some. So some carbs before training will give you some energy to get through the workout. I usually have an apple or a banana, some carbs and protein with your first meal after lifting or after your workout will help recovery, and it will ensure that your energy supplies are being refueled and that you're repairing the muscle that you've damaged. You'll need to micromanage that. There's a lot of talk about the anabolic window where you have to eat protein and carbs within 30 minutes, you just wasted your workout. That's pretty much bullshit. It's not something you really need to worry about. So an example of how I put this into practice myself is that I do center my carbs around training for the most part. So I don't really have any carbs in my day that are not vegetable related, meaning I'll eat like carrots and broccoli and salads. And I'll have some chickpeas. That's a legume, but I'm not going to have anything real heavy carb-wise. It's mostly going to be things that grow, plants. So generally, that's kind of what I'll eat like during the day, and then before my workout, 4:30 to 5, I'll have a banana right before my workout, and then after my workout, I will have dinner. That's usually a balanced meal. The bulk of my carbs, just in the sheer amount, I realized in saying it, most carbs are going to come from plants. Bear with me. Most of my carbs are after my trip, and that's the lifestyle prep for me. I don't really worry about eating within 30 minutes of your workout or you'll waste your gains or anything like that. It's just a myth. And unless you're a serious competitive athlete, it's much better to keep things simple because then you're much more likely to stick with them. The take-home points would be, as long as you're eating enough food throughout the day and your nutrition before and after your training are not going to make or break your results. It's your consistency over the course of a day, 8 days, over the course of weeks, and as well as consistency of your training, your intensity, and your things. Things matter far more importantly. Tiny little things that might make a million difference, and even then, you basically have, even if these things mattered in some tiny percentage, is the effort you have to put into manage all of them. That you want to become that, it's an entirely different story. But I feel it should be something that actually becomes a back process that makes your life everything you want to do come in your life, unless that you want to do from an area we can talk. Since we were talking about carbs, that kind of segues naturally into the next question that I've received. A few people have pretty questioned, worthwhile to talk about it here. I've answered. If you did ask me this question and my answer wasn't in depth enough, please let me know. But I your topic for this question. So a couple people said they were concerned about progress results. So in general, if of lowering carbs, they have to go somewhere. I'm certainly okay with that if you do that. Your carb and your fat goals are mostly related to your lifestyle and your personal preferences. So for weight loss, it is the calories that matter. But if the calories are constant, lowering carbs is not going to have a weight loss difference compared to having higher carbs. In general, people will generally lose some water weight over the course of a week or two if they lower their carbs, but that's not really long-term fat loss or weight loss. That's just that water weight will come back and it has to be fact if you increase your carb intake as well. And as I'm going through and switching people over to being a measurement-based system as opposed to just focusing on the scale weight so much, kind of see that in the measurements guide that talks about why that happens. So as I said, for weight loss, it is the calories that matter the most. In the end, I will support you in whatever you feel is your natural way of eating for you. That allows you to be consistent with your calorie goals, because in the end, it's the consistency with your calorie goals, because that's where weight loss happens. I mean, is that some people do better. Some people seem to lose weight faster by going higher carb and lower fat, while others do better with lower carb and higher fat. I'm actually okay with either approach. So whichever one fits into your lifestyle better and you find easier to stick to, that's the approach you should go with. This is kind of weird to say this, but my approach is not that there's one right way to do it, other than the fact that you have to account for total calories. It's the way that allows you to account for total calories and not be hungry and feel good and not feel like you're suffering. So there is no magic way that will work for every single person, as this amount of protein and this amount of carbs and this amount of fat. It's not going to be the same for every person. There are lots of factors that contribute to that, some of which you may not be aware of, some of which you have no control over. There's going to be an individualized balance for yourself that's different than anyone else's. And once you find that, that is your system, that is your framework. So I know it's not easy to kind of teach that, but there's no one right way. Low carb is not superior in general to high carb, but it might be superior for you. So the problem I have with that is that people tend to be dogmatic, and once they find a way that works for them, they make it as if that's the only way and that other people should do that, even if it doesn't work. I talk about fasting. I currently fast, and that just means skipping breakfast to have calories later in the day. That doesn't work for everyone. It's worth trying. I kind of view everything that I've tried myself during my own journey as an experiment, and I learned what works, and I learned what works better. I've basically figured out where I've had my best progress, and part of that progress is not just the scale, but how I feel, how easy it is to implement, and how much stress I feel as a result of that. So I've pretty much tried everything, also within the realm of keeping calories constant, and how do I easily achieve that without feeling like suffering. So there's all those fad diets out there, and like many of you, I assume you've tried a bunch of fad diets, and they didn't really work for you long term. And they didn't for me either. With all those, but once I finally lost weight and kept it off, I started also, as part of that process, experimenting with, allowed me to find a way that worked for me long term to keep that weight off. So there's nothing wrong with kind of experimenting constantly. So if you want to try lowering your carb intake a little bit, if you want to try lowering your carb intake a lot, if you want to try going really low fat a little bit, and just kind of seeing how you react, because it's okay if you do that and it doesn't work and you feel like you messed up, because the end result is that you learned what not to do. And that's incredibly important, because once you've found out what works for you, that's what's going to keep you at the health level and weight that you want to be at once you're there. You have to be able to get to there and stay there with the same method. So it's basically like, it's something you constantly are going to have to do to maintain that. You can't just go back to your old ways and assume that you're just going to maintain your weight loss. It has to be something that's sustainable for you. Excuse me. So to recap, I don't think there's any one way that's better than any other in general, but for you as an individual, there is, and I'm going to help you find that as best as I can. So other than being consistent, just make sure the basics are taken care of, and that's having your calories in control, getting sufficient protein, enough water, vitamins, minerals, and fiber, and managing your hunger. So one approach that I've found that does work for many people is to start out with lower carbs and then gradually raise them as they lose weight. One way to test this is to eat a higher carb meal let's say like pancakes, stack of pancakes. If you eat a stack of pancakes and you feel bad afterwards, like you just want to lay down and go to sleep, you probably have a high sensitivity to carbs, meaning that, excuse me, that means that lowering your carbs might make it easier for you to stick with your calorie goals consistently without being hungry. However, if you eat that stack of pancakes and you want to go run a marathon and butter a wall like the Kool-Aid man, it might be easier for you to stick with a high carb, moderate fat diet. And I say moderate because you definitely don't want to take your fat levels too low, because there are some hormonal and joint health consequences that I've personally experienced. I've, like I said, I kind of have experimented with different approaches to see what they do to me as far as how I feel. And going too low of fat let me take my carb levels really high and really helped me with hunger. But it resulted in achy joints. Like I had some joint problems, my joints were just sore from weightlifting, and I didn't feel that I was recovering well enough. So that is something to keep in mind. So if you have specific questions about your carb and fat levels, please do let me know. Excuse me. I've been fighting off a really bad chest cold. So I think that covers all of the pre-submitted questions. Let me see if there's any questions being asked. But while I'm doing that, again, if you do have questions about trying a different carb and fat levels, there's no best approach in general. That's really just what you're comfortable with and what allows you to be consistent. So let's talk about that if you're curious. All right. I'm not currently seeing any additional questions. So I'm going to wrap it up here. But thank you for watching. Everyone have a great night, and I'll talk to you soon. All right. Bye-bye.